Hello and welcome back. In this short lecture, we're going to learn about step-by-step configuration of Autopilot in Microsoft Intune portal. To begin with that, the first configuration would be we need to configure company branding, which is a specific logo, specific settings within your Azure portal. So let's begin that, how to configure, then we would come back to other 4 or 5 different settings. Logged into Microsoft Azure portal pointing to Azure Active Directory. So within Azure Active Directory, you have company branding. Click on company branding and you have your option for the default. In your case, maybe these checkboxes are maybe not in a green because in my case I have already configured, but it's so easy that it's simply browse that, open up that in a new blade and locate your file for the background, and also a banner logo should be located, and the advanced settings, if you are interested, you can configure these also for that specific logo specific requirements. Once you have given your company specific brand and the banner logo information, you're all good with the first requirement. Let's begin with the second requirement. In the second requirement, which is the our second step altogether, configuring your Microsoft Intune to enable your devices to be auto-enrolled. So one would be one configuration here in the point 2. One is pointing for the devices. Second point here, it is talking about the user specific also, who are allowed to log in, or who are allowed to enroll into their devices, and this definitely requires the premium licensing. So let's configure this specific setting. How to configure this? I'm pointing to Microsoft Intune, then go to the device enrollment. This is the first option which I'm trying to configure here, and then Windows enrollment. This is where automatic enrollment. In fact, we did configure throughout this course. For other purpose, we did already configure this specific setting. So you make sure that your MDM user scope should be based on the devices which you wanted to allow. So in my case, I am configuring for all. That means anybody who wanted to enroll their devices, that would automatically get the Microsoft Intune agent also. So we are allowing, we are open for everybody. In your case, if you wanted to configure for a specific users, then everything would be dependent on that specific group. So you are allowing only that specific EMS or Intune or scope enable only users. That means they are only can be enrolled. So that's how you can configure if you are explicitly looking for a specific configuration. But in my case, I'm configuring for everyone. The reason is if I start looking for the sum again, whatever the settings in the future coming up, I need to scope them and I need to add them properly into the grouping. So which I don't want to do it now. So I'm just open for everyone in fact, and make sure that MAM user scope is none, because this doesn't support these future few of the configuration. So I'm just configuring as null. This is one setting. Other setting would be if you just go back to the Microsoft Intune and devices, there is another configuration which needs to be configured. Oh, it's not there, but if you just go back to the Active Directory, in the Active Directory blade, select the devices. Now you have something called device settings. So make sure that in the device settings, it should be no scope who wants to enable to, or who wants to allow to be joined within the Azure AD. This is one other configuration settings. If you don't configure this, you would be ending with a permissions problem when it is performing the autopilot. So make sure that this specific setting is configured. So let me go back to the PowerPoint. Let me present the next 2 options, which are, one would be the configuring your deployment profile. A profile is a settings which we talked about, how to automate. Those are the specific settings which would be talking about the profile. And other one would be the OEM specific hardware ID, how to extract that in our lab. In your case, maybe hardware vendor maybe give you that hardware IDs in the format of CSV, or if you have a test machine, or if you have a target machine, you can run some kind of PowerShell scripts to get that CSV file to be generated, and then you can retarget that specific machine. So for the autopilot, by this time you might have understand by this statement that either OEM specific team or the vendor has to give the CSV format file which has that hardware IDs, or you need to have a machine with the operating system. Then only you can generate a file which is in a CSV format file. So either way, without the OEM vendor help, or without having an OS, you can't use the auto deployment feature. That's the major challenge, as indeed what I feel personally. Let's jump into the Autopilot deployment profile creation, and then we'll come back to this, the point 4. I'm in Microsoft Intune portal, point to device enrollment, and then go to Windows enrollment, and you have this section which is which we ignored, in fact, when we talked about device enrollment section. We did not talk about Autopilot specific because I wantedly ignored all these because I wanted to discuss in just the Autopilot section. So this is the time which I wanted to explain to you. So this is where you can create your deployment profile. Let me show you, what exactly deployment profile. In fact, I have already created 2 of them for my testing purpose, but let's create one for you too, so that you can understand how the deployment profile can be. So you can have as many as deployment profiles based on your requirement, based on your targets. There's no stopping point. It's just the point where you are actually targeting. So let's create one for the class section just for the demo. And so if you see here, it's not taking my hyphens, so I just need to take out that special character, then it will accept, and I can give the description. And if you take the yes, it's going to actually convert the Autopilot deployments, and then the device list will be reverted after that. So you can check out here the configuration specific information, like by selecting yes, the target devices will be automatically comes for the auto deployment or Autopilot if they are not already registered. Otherwise it's going to register. So I'm going to choose as just anything, because it's just the demo creation. We would be creating later point all the required configuration, or we can just take it as is. That's okay, and go back to the next. And it says that the out of box experience, this is nothing but a OOB experience. This is where you have the 2 options. One would be the driven user driven, and other one would be the self deploying, which is used for the kiosk mode, this self deployment option. In other way, this is going to be a light touch or no touch by end users. So the minimal touch by the end user who's gonna perform self deployments. Whereas the user driven would be the user have to be enter some of the settings, then it's going to be user driven. So we're gonna first test the user driven also, as well as the self deployment, but let's concentrate on the user driven option for now, so that we can understand what exactly all these possible options. To begin with that, is this machine is going to join in Azure AD, or is going to be joined to your hybrid? That means both the places it's going to join. One would be the Azure AD, as well as the on your on-premises domain control. We would be testing all that if time allows, definitely. And coming back to the Microsoft software licensing terms, this is a option which comes on the end user screen. Do you want to show to the end user, or you want to hide? So you can hide this option if you don't want to show it to the end user, so that it would be a minimal touch experience for the end users, even though it's a user driven. And the privacy settings, you want to hide or you want to show to the users. Again, coming back to the hide user account options, these are the account option specific. You want to hide it, or you want to show them. And also user account type would be by default, that's one of the key point. I can say that with the help of Microsoft Intune Autopilot, this is the only mechanism supports when you deploy anywhere Windows 10 or any of the Windows operating system as on date. By default, the first user becomes as the administrator, but with the auto deployment Autopilot, it's going to be just the you have the option to choose the standard or administrator. That's one of the security concerns. Also, sometimes if you don't want to allow them to as an administrator, whoever deploying, because these auto deployment is happening on the remote computers where user is performing all these activities, so we don't want them to be become as the super admin on that computer. So now you have the ability to control that with this specific setting. Now coming back to the most interesting topic here would be the allow white glove experience. So make sure that if you enable the specific setting, I'm going to talk in the upcoming lectures of the specific setting, how to what are the pre-requirements. So basically this is not going to support on a VM if you're trying to do on a VM, or if you're trying to do on a TPM chip lesser than 2.0 TPM chip, it's not going to support. So you need to have a TPM chip enabled with the 2.0. So I'm going to try this on only latest hardware models. On this specific thing, I'm going to talk on a different slide, but this is going to be just the high level of the configuration which I'm talking about as an introduction kind of thing, or the high level for the step by step how to configure. Later point we would come back to this screen and we would enable all these settings as required as per our demo requirements. So this is basically a white glove option where you can enable the specific setting for pre-staging all the required applications or the settings for the end user. So there would be a middleman, or maybe your IT help desk team, or maybe your Intune admin, or whoever, or maybe OEM vendor also. They can do this white glove experience they can offer for the end users, so that the required applications, policies, everything would be pre-staged for the end user's experience. So end user has to only enter the username and password. That's it. All the required business applications will be ready for that. And basically this works only from the latest operating system, not from the 17.09 or whatever the versions you are using. But this is a specific setting, and this even doesn't work on 18.03 or 18.09 because of the hardware specific settings also. So make sure that check out upcoming next lecture on specific to white glove. And coming back to the applied device name template, so you have the ability to rename the computer when it is trying to build, whether you want to set it a computer standard name, for example. And few of the companies, or most of the companies, they go for a standard name. For example, a PC hyphen, they just want a PC hyphen a serial number, so that they simply enter as the capitals, so serial, and then give a random percentage, so that whatever the serial number of that specific device would be added, or a random key also can be added. These are the things which are documented properly. You can check out that. Or I would be talking, for example, I can finish it up here itself, simply giving a random number and then colon equivalent 1 or x, so that when the x value will be increasing for you, whatever the machines are getting generated. So these are the different techniques or the templates which are available for the device naming. But in my case, I'm just choosing as the no template at this point of time, simply going further with the scope tags. So these scope tags are security specific and the building's purpose. So anyway, I'm not going to talk on that specific thing. Let's talk about more important point here for the assignments. So you need to understand here the assignments. So who's gonna assign the specific profile will be targeted, who are the audience they are gonna targeted with this specific. Let's say you want this to be targeted for all the missions which we are importing. So so far we have not talked about the how to import. So this is just the profile configuration, and we will come back to the adding, how to add that specific AD group topic in a minute or so, because I don't want to make you to the confused now to giving that a specific AD group. So I would definitely come back to this section once again in the next point, which is the fourth point, where we generate the CSV file. If you remember, this is the third point which we are trying to learn about how to create a Windows Autopilot deployment profile on Microsoft Intune, right? So the fourth point would be the generating the PowerShell. By using the PowerShell commands, we will generate some of the CSV format file. So that would be the next immediate maybe in a few minutes we're gonna watch that. There you would be learning all that, but I'm not gonna include here any of the groups for now. So let's review and just click on create. So that's gonna create the specific profile. So this is how you are going to create a specific profile. So we would be definitely creating multiple profiles as per our requirement, and then we would target to a specific group. So let me show you here. Assigned is no for our group because we have not targeted any of the specific AD group within that profile. So if you try to edit this specific group, you would be actually going to the properties and click on edit, because you have the 3 different sections like scope and assignment and out of box, and as well as a basic, so which contains your name and description, and all that options can be configured. And if since it's already taken as a user driven, I can't switch back this. If you see here, if I try to edit also, it's not gonna allow me because few of the options are fully hard coded. Only the possible options would be these terms and conditions. Other very basic things are allowed for me to edit. I'm going to show you the point 4 related specific settings also, but not from our demo profile which we have created. But let's take one of the other profile. For example, if I take demo 1 to 3 here, and go to properties, which is the similar settings might be, but it all depends on what settings I have taken. I don't really remember, but if I go back to assigned devices, I should be able to see here some of the serial numbers are able to see manufacturer and the model and the group tag. All these are available, and if you want to know how these came, and you just have to wait 1 or 2 minutes or maybe 3-4 minutes, which we are going to cover in the point 4. So let's jump into the point 4. What exactly the point 4 what we are trying to learn in this step 4 would be the either your OEM hardware vendor will give a kind of a file which can be imported into Microsoft Intune, so that the machines will be available or will be ready for your target. For your target. And other one would be that you can run some of the PowerShell commands to get it that CSV to be generated, and then you can target them. I'm taking this opportunity to explain to you more about hardware IDs and how the capturing would happen at the OEM level. To begin with that, OEM is nothing but your hardware vendors who have the who manufacture these hardwares, right? Your laptops, and they have a different tool called OA3 tool, which has a kind of mechanism which they can use it to generate that file, and then they would take it out with the help of OA3 tool, and they submit to Microsoft for a build report. Or what they can do is, they can, when I say submit, they actually log into a portal. Either the better way would be to log in from the Microsoft Intune portal. Also they can also log in from Microsoft Store for Business portal, and that's where they actually import that specific file. That's how it's going to work. But in our case, since it's going to be a test case, so what we are going to do is we are going to run some kind of PowerShell script to generate that file for our test PCs. Let me show you the Microsoft Store for Business website. This is the website where normally we log in here and we provision some of the applications, and out of these applications what we purchased can be pushed from the Microsoft Intune. That's what we have done, if you remember, in the past demonstration. Now not into the Microsoft Autopilot section, but we did try these other sections in the client app sections to enable our Microsoft Store for Business. Now what I'm gonna do is, here we need to actually import the applications. So if you can see here, adding devices, like if you are trying to do manually, you can also do it. This is option 1, you can say, but what Microsoft recommends is you need to do it from the Microsoft Intune portal, not from the Store for Business. That's what Microsoft recommends. But if you come across any of the website or any of the blog post, you should know that you have an option to import, or you need to, if you have the hardware ID which you have generated already, you can import from here. Also for the OEMs, they can also enable from here, and that can actually import that files, the files which they generate or which they send to you. You can either import here, or if it is directly OEMs, they would be directly importing here. So that means you need to give some kind of permissions on the website so that they can perform this step on behalf of you. So when we run the PowerShell script, it's going to be simulate very similar to AO3 tool, which does that for you. And once we have done that capturing script, or let me show you the script actually. Coming back to the hardware ID to export out of your existing machines, you have possibly multiple options where you can do it. So one would be the manually directly you can run with the normal WMI commands to extract it the output, and then you make out of it as a CSV file. Or the Microsoft TechNet forum guys have already released some of the PowerShell scripts, so all you have to do is simply run that single command, which would actually generate the output for you. Or in the other way would be the Microsoft documentation has provided you to run some kind of script. So you have three possible options. The first one would be the direct Microsoft, which is this command which you're going to run. So when you if I explain this, what would happen is actually here the PowerShell script to be run. So here it's gonna creating a directory which is called hardware ID in C drive, and it's gonna changing the directory, that's a CD change directory to hardware ID, which is HWID as a directory. Then it's gonna setting the PowerShell script to execution mode to unrestricted, because it's not recommended to set it, I know that, but by running this, what would happen is anyway this machine is gonna rebuild in a minute or so. So that's why we are performing this step altogether. So if you don't want that, you can run it the required set execution policies. So when you run this, it's gonna ask, this is the command actually, install script name get Windows Autopilot info. So it's gonna download actually a NGD or some kind of PowerShell packages which is connecting to Microsoft portal or some kind of PowerShell script repositories, and then it's going to download and execute later point. So it's going to download a file called get-windows autopilot info.ps1. So this is the latest file, whatever it is available on the repository. It's gonna download. Once it is downloaded, we are actually running this step to perform the output to give the hardware ID. So what happens is, if you just go through these same steps as a screenshot, like it's gonna create it, and then it's gonna execute, and it's gonna ask you some kind of yes no options if you want allow, and then once it's done, it's going to create this kind of script. So if you don't want to run this script, you also have an option to run automated other scripts, so which I'm going to show you that also. So you can gather by running this kind of commands the same output which is coming out of output as in the CSV format. So whatever it is coming into the CSV as a data, the same thing can be produced if you run these are the commands. So either way it's one and the same, but once you get this output, you need to format into a proper way. Let me show you that in a minute or so. But if you don't want to run all these junky commands, you can actually use this. This is a script which I have shown you in the previous slide. So this is where the script is available. The current version is 1.6. In future, if it's coming as 1.7 or whatever the version, you simply go back to just remove /1.6. So that would take it to the history of that specific script, and you can check out what is the current version, and you can use that specific version. Let me show you the output of the CSV format file, how it looks like, by opening in a notepad as well as in a CSV format. This is where you have the CSV format here, like device serial number and product ID and the Windows hash group tag, assigned user. So this is the length of the commands, and when you're trying to import from the Microsoft Intune portal, you have the limitation of 500 in rows at once can be imported within that file. So let me open that file and show you how it looks like. This is the file. When we open in the notepad, what Microsoft recommends is just to copy paste from the notepad. Don't try to edit in any other editors, that might cause corruption of the data. That's what they recommend. So just I'm trying to open in the
notepad, and you can see this is a big junk file is there. So you need to understand here a few of the things, especially there's something called ID file, which is this is the serial number. This is the serial number of that specific machine. So what would happen is, with this serial ID, you are gonna create, I mean, not you exactly. What happens is when you import this file in Azure AD, you're not exactly importing to the Azure AD, but we are gonna importing into Autopilot. So Autopilot will automatically create a resource ID. That means when I say resource ID, it's gonna creating a computer name with this specific ID. And what we are going to do is we are going to use that specific ID or the computer name, and we would add that to a specific AD group. Later point we would add that group to the, remember, to the Autopilot profile. We left over not to add any of the groups, so that's where we are going to add that group. So I'm going to talk on that in the next few more minutes, but for now you can understand that this is the hardware file. How it looks like is this. So you can generate an easy way, so better to use the PowerShell or use my script which have described in the notes section, or you can check out the script from the website which we have shown in the PowerPoint presentation. This is the one other format file which I try to open in a CSV. So what would happen is it's not exactly in the column wise. If you see here, it's a lengthy file. Like here is the header information, but here it's not in this right order, so we can't edit this. It's in its own description, its own in format, so it only that format will be accepted. So don't try to edit this anything, and that's how it's gonna work. Okay, it's demo time. As part of the generating that CSV format file, we have not tried this, but because this has to be, again, you have to put it into the right format and stuff. That what we have done is we would be executing that PowerShell. So this PowerShell script we would be executing so that we got this kind of output, and assume that I got this output as a demonstration. We would be doing on a real live machines later point on other part of demos within this section, but assume that you have this file. Now how to import is I'm gonna show you that now. Back to Microsoft Intune portal. Now just go back to the Microsoft Intune portal and device enrollment. As I said, everything with the Autopilot, it will be under Windows enrollment. So you have a separate section altogether here. So in this group of settings, you have these options. So we did play with already with the profile settings, and we already created a demo purpose. Now we are gonna actually import that specific hardware ID which we just exported out of a test mission, which we wanted that mission as a target for deployment. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going back to the devices here, and you can go back to import, and then you can import by pressing this file. Before doing that, I wanted to show you something in the Active Directory, so that you know what kind of objects we have at this point of time. So let me go back here and point to the devices. So in the devices, we have different devices here. If you can see here, a lengthy name which we talked about, if you remember, as part of our CSV format. You have the serial ID. This is the serial ID which we talked about when we open the CSV format file. So this with this ID, it's going to generate here ID very similar to this. So we did also have two more objects within this. If you can see here, 87 as well as 53 specific. So there should be very similar 87 and 97 also there. So the other machine might be built like 53. If it is not there, it might be already built. And if you see here, Toshiba PC, which is also sorry, not the Toshiba here, this is the Lenovo PC which we imported here. If you can see here, the serial number in the as part of my testing, I did already import it. So now it's time for us to import that specific file, so that it's going to create here an Azure AD object as specific to the device. So in future, once the machine is built with Autopilot, it's going to actually name as part of our profile standards, or a random name would be generated very similar to like this. So it's going to generate that computer name out of these, and these are the objects which also should be part of your Azure AD group. So I'm going to talk on that in a minute or so, but let's import this by pressing here, browsing that CSV format file, and simply click OK. So it's gonna find out how many of the machines or entries are available. As I said, at least the 500 is a maximum limit what you can input at once. So what happens is, when you get this file from the OEM vendors, they would be giving you a bunch of machines. For example, your order fulfill with maybe hundreds of machines, so that much of number of rows will be added within this format file, and so that that how many machines you are importing here. So in my case, it's just a one computer, so it's showing as a one computer, so one row. So I'm just clicking on import. This would take actually a 15 minutes time. If you see here, it might take 1 minute to 15 minutes of time, and it would actually gives you the countdown time. Once it is successful, it's going to show you here as the completed. If you see here, it's still importing and syncing is pending. Here you need to understand few things. Once you import, actually it's gonna do some kind of sync. So the sync is a process which would initiate to pre-stage that entry within the Autopilot servers. So it's not just the input in the background, there is something called a sync process also would happen. So this might take anything between 1 minute to 15 minutes out of my experience. Sometimes it's very quick. Even if I just try to refresh, by this time it could be imported. But if you're getting a status like this, it might take some time, because in the background it's going to create a AD entry also. So what would happen is, once you have imported this, it's actually comes back here as the inputs. Let it import this. In fact, it's just imported. So if I just refresh here, I got here one of the information as the Dell INC, because the machine which I have imported, a physical machine which is Inspiron i5-3356-7 machine. So if you see here the difference between other profiles and other objects here, it's not yet assigned. So as a next step, what we have to do is we would be actually selecting this. Make sure that people think that the just click on assign, but they do the normal mistake is here when we click on select also. I'm going to show you that what's a common mistake what we do. Here just need to select whatever the user you want to assign this. For example, I wanted to assign for a user called Autop example, and select this, and later point people do that, oh, I have already assigned, but it's not that. You need to click on here as a save also. You might miss out that specific section. So let's understand what exactly this means. Here if you see here, this is the manufacturer of my physical machine, and in fact this is a virtual machine if you see here, but these two are the physical machines. One would be the Lenovo PC, other one would be the Dell PC. We're gonna try to demonstrate on Surface Pro 2. So here it's gonna show you the model number and the manufacturer, and a little bit interested, and focus point would be profile status. So what is a profile you're gonna assign? So if you remember, we did actually created some of the profiles in Autopilot. So let me go back here and show you that. So what is that profile it's gonna assign for that specific computer? So let's go to device enrollment, Autopilot section, under Windows enrollment, device profile, so the deployment profile. So these are the three different profiles out there, and what profile you're going to target this. So you don't have option here. If you see here, you don't have an option to assign, but you do have option to assign from the Microsoft Store for Business. You do have their options normally, but in our case we don't want to do any kind of steps from the business store for business, but we wanted to do everything from the Microsoft Intune portal, because that's the only way Microsoft recommends, in fact. So the reason why it is not showing is here, this specific object, whatever it was created by this time in Azure AD. Let me show you here. If I just go back here, if you see here 9 objects are there. If I just refresh, there could be another object got already created. It's not yet created, but if I just save on it, it's going to create. Maybe it might take some more time. So once it's created, that specific object was not targeted to any of the group Azure AD group, or this machine is not part of any of these target groups. See, let's say if I take as demo 123, demo 123 has a targets here, uh, are assigned to a specific group called all your Autopilot devices, or all Autopilot demo 2 group. So if it is part of these groups, that specific mission, it will be listing there. So in other way, it actually shows that profile status here. So it's not it assigned to any of the profiles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually click on save. Just clicking on save, so it's going to assign for that specific user. This might take a minute. Here it's assigned to that specific user. So if I just refresh, this is very interesting point, and you should be focused. Here it's currently not assigned, but if I just refresh in a minute or so, it's assigning. Right, so from assigning to assigned status, once it is come out this status, then you're ready actually. So this might take anything, maybe 10-15 minutes, or you need to leave that machine. So it's not that you just import it and the next minute you're trying to build the Autopilot. It's not going to work for you. So you need to import and give some time for the Intune portal to actually create in the background and do the performing steps. Let's take one of the Lenovo one and show you, still it is an assigning states, from unassigned to assigning, and then assigned state should be coming up. So this is where you need to look at. I have a PPT also prepared on this specific, but luckily we got this status here. Let me take the Lenovo PC and show you here. The device is assigned state for a user called AutoP. So it would be a conflicting if I select already AutoP. So let me unassign maybe the specific user. I'm sorry for that, but if I just unassign, so it should not be the same user we should be assigning here, because the same computer twice it is assigning, so which I don't want to do it. And if you see here the profile status, now it is assigning to a demo 123 in a minute. So so that means whatever the specific settings are there for demo 123, it's going to apply. How did I get it here as the demo 123? Because I had a AD group which was targeted with a specific to this machine. So how this was happened is, if I just go back to here on Azure AD, if I refresh here, I might have by this time at least one another AD machine, or it's just one more machine. Let's take one more here. If you see here, this is the entry which we have imported, in fact 6500PJ2, that's the serial number of my Dell machine. So that's why it's just a 9. When we actually checked in a few minutes back, it was already imported by that time. So as the next step, I need to have Azure AD specific group. So let me go back to Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, and groups. In the groups, I do have a group to be created. In fact, that's where it should be dynamic group. Let me show you that dynamic group which we have to create. So to create a group, just click on the new group. Maybe you may be thinking why I have to create a group, because the group creation is required because of the device just imported and it is available, but it's not assigned for any of the profile because the profile does not have any target. So as a first step, what we have done is we created a Azure here the deployment profile. For example, this is the profile which we created, class demo, but we don't have any of the target for this profile. This is where we need to include that specific group. So a group need to be added here to create that group, or to be target this specific profile which we created in the previous steps. We need to have a AD group so that the machines will be part of that AD group, and since the machines are part of that AD group, this group can be added here so that the profile will be added. That means in other way, for example, this is still in an unassigned mode because the profile was not assigned earlier. It was in assigning state, but I did actually remove that there was a AD specific group which was there for auto profile 123, so I just removed that. So this status is now showing as not assigned. In the background I have done that for you. I could have actually cleaned that before I demonstrate, but that's okay. So when you import, it will be like this state with the auto P and profile was not assigned. If you take as the Lenovo, it would be assigned some other profile here, like assigned here already a profile, and a profile number, profile name is SEP 2019. So in our case, this is the Dell PC. To assign that, first point is this profile should have a target as the AD group. To have that AD group, I'm going to create as the first time, so we have to create a AD group. So I'm going to point into Azure AD, and the new group, it's going to be a security, and it should be dynamic devices specific, and I'm going to give a name here as all Autopilot devices dynamic. Let me type that. And now I'm going to create a specific dynamic query. So this is where I'm just clicking on edit, and I'm going to enter here a JDT specific text should be enter here. So if any of the device will contains JTDID, that means you just imported and it's ready for your Autopilot. So if that's the case, it will contain a physical ID as the JTD ID. One of the attribute will be filled. So we are actually looking for this value. If this value is present, that machine will be part of this specific AD group, which is a dynamic AD group called all Autopilot devices. So let's create this and check out whether our imported computer is part of this group or not. So it's just created, and I want to refresh here and look for that specific group. So this is the AD group which we just created, and if I go back to the members, it should actually show in a minute or so, because we just created, so it's gonna populate in a minute or so automatically. So this might take a minute or so. I did wait for 30 seconds or so. I'm just refreshing, so it should be coming up. So it's populated the two of the devices which are targeted for Autopilot. So one of the device would be the 6500PZ2, which is our specific to the device, Dell specific device which we imported. So let me go back here, and so this is the device which is now ready, and it is part of that specific AD group. So let me refresh. There is no changes here. In fact, if you see here, it's still the same case, but what we are going to do is we are going to actually associate the profile. So to do that, let's go back to the Microsoft Intune and then device enrollment and Windows enrollment. And if you see here, I'm sorry, if I just go back to the overview, it says that one device without one profile, without any of the profiles. So that means device was imported successfully, like we did it by importing, right? But it's not assigned to any of the profile. That means profile was not configured. If the no profile is configured, it can't deploy it. So during the process of whatever we are thinking about Autopilot, so there is nothing but a profile will be downloaded during that deployment with that specific answer file kind of thing. So in this case, this specific device does not have any profile. So if I just right click, or just if I just go and look at what is this specific device, it says that this is a specific device which does not have any of the specific profile was not assigned. In this case, it's the Inspiron i5 model. So I'm gonna assign that a specific profile. To assign that, I need to go back to the device enrollment and Windows a specific enrollment process and device deployment profile. So we did create it in the first step as the profile, but we have not assigned any of the AD group. So now I'm going to assign this is going to be another AD group which I'm going to assign. So here so the group which we just created should be assigned. So what I'm going to do is here for this class demo profile, auto profile, I'm editing the assignment. In the assignment, I'm going to give here selecting the specific group, which is all Autopilot device hyphen dynamic, which is this is the group AD group, and click on select. So that group is going to be selected here, and review and save. Make sure that this is a specific group. So that's a dynamic group. So in future, any of the devices you are going to import which will be automatically part of that AD group. What if you don't want that, or you want to limit it? You need to create a specific AD group and associate it to this profile. It might not be a dynamic, but I just chosen here as a dynamic so that that there's a dynamic option. You don't need to every time create AD group or import that specific machine if you have just the one auto deployment profile. So here it's just saved. I'm going back to my devices here, and if you see here at this point of time, it's not even assigned any of the profile, but I need to wait to think that there's a small change within the device profile target that should be automatically identified, or I can force it. So if I check on a sync, if you see here, it's actually showing some time is here as 6:57 and 6:53. So if I just refresh here, this might change the timestamp, but it might not assign because it has to run in the background automatically all the steps. So I need to give some time, maybe 15 to 20 minutes or some kind of time, so that the profile assignment would come up automatically. If I just check out by closing this and refresh, it's actually assigned state with a proper profile name, which is a class demo. So how did this assign? Just to give you one more time the explanation. There is a class profile which we created, and that's a profile has a dynamic group as a target of this group. So whatever the devices are part of this will be automatically targeted. For example, if you see here, Lenovo or PC also has been targeted to class demo now, because I did remove Lenovo membership. Whatever the AD group was there as the Lenovo group, that has been taken out and assigned only assigned the specific group, so it's just has been targeted. So this is how it's going to work for the profile import and profile creation part. Let's review what we have learned so far. So for the step-by-step configuration, we did actually created a company branding. Post to that, we also created Microsoft Intune auto enrollment. We did also verified specific to the device group, and then we also configure the deployment profile with the dynamic or static group as a target. That's why I did mention here. I might not explain while presenting this point 3, but you mean to know now by this time dynamic or static is what exactly by this mean, and also the OEM vendors, how they use a different tools, and we did explain that. We did use the PowerShell. There are multiple options you have with the PowerShell, and out of that we use one of the method to get that hardware ID. Then we imported that into the Autopilot or device configuration, and then that took 15 minutes time to import. And now each machine is targeted with each of the users. That's how the profile was configured. So machines have target of a dynamic or static group, and we can monitor the status like assigned is the final state, which we got it now. And the last step would be the deploy the machine. So that's what we are going to do it in the next demos. But these are the things which we may repeat in as part of our demo, definitely, but not the configuring the company branding, because it's a one time. Once you have done the company branding, you don't need to do it once again because it's a one time. So the remaining 4 steps we might repeatedly doing because of creating our own requirement based profiles and targeting them, and we would be demonstrating that. Thank you for watching this. I hope this is helpful for you.